Hello, everyone, and welcome to this SPE Live broadcast. I'm your host for today, Jason Notoris. So today we're excited to speak with technical paper expert and principal scientist at Saudi Aramco, Sunil Kokal. Sunil has written more than 150 technical and 60 journal papers. He's also authored chapters for the SPE Petroleum Engineering Handbook and is currently on the JPT Review Board. For his day job, Sunil has spent nearly 3 decades at Saudi Aramco, where he currently is principal scientist and a focus area champion of enhancing oil recovery in the reservoir engineering technology team. Thank you so much for joining us, Sunil.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's a great topic. I'm excited to discuss this with you because having a technical paper accepted into an event can be a career booster for many people. So for today's discussion, we do want to cover some of the key components and some of the basic methods and just why writing one is important. So audience, this works just as well the more you participate. So we do want to see what you have to say. Send us your questions in the comments. And really, it is a privilege to have Sunil's time right now. So please make sure you do take advantage of that. So let's begin by setting the stage, Sunil, on your experience writing technical papers. Kindly share a brief introduction on that topic for us.
So my name is Sunil Kokal, and I'm a focus area champion in the Reservoir Engineering Technology team at XPEC-R, which is the Advanced Research Center at Saudi Aramco, based in the Haran, Saudi Arabia. I've been with the company now almost 30 years. Before that, I was working for a small non-profit company in Calgary, Canada, Petroleum Recovery Institute. And my background is that I have a PhD in chemical engineering, but most of my 3.5 decades of my professional career have been as a petroleum engineer, or rather a petroleum scientist. My areas of research are enhanced oil recovery and CO2 in particular. And more these days, I have been working on carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions reduction, and also now working to initiate something on hydrogen, specifically upstream hydrogen technologies. And I am based in Saudi Arabia.
And it looks like people are responding to us being able to do this live together. So thank you. Both Raphael and Mohammed saying that they're watching from Dubai. Utali, I see you. Thank you so much for watching. Ekrem from Turkey, and Jose Luis sending us greetings from Mexico City. Sunil, I am curious, and this can just be a quick year answer if you want it to be, but when did you write your first technical paper?
That reminds me going a long time back. It was 1983.
Oh, wow.
And,
okay.
I still remember that it was a American Institute of Chemical Engineers conference in Vancouver, Canada. And I was in my first year into my master's thesis at the University of Calgary. And the topic I still remember was two-phase flow in pipes. And I was scared and I was anxious. However, people liked my story. And that started my journey into the realm of writing, and specifically writing technical papers.
It seems like for many of us, when we first dive into a new experience, the anxiety and the stress is there. Would you just advise people to just kind of do it to get over that? It sounds like that worked for you.
Yeah, every time that we move into our non-comfort zone, there's always some degree of anxiety and anxiousness, and you're scared. But I think the most important thing that I learned from my experience was just to get into it. Sometimes we think that it is very hard, but once you actually get down to it, actually write down the paper and actually go and present to an audience, you enjoy that experience. So the best thing to do is to understand that you are working out of your comfort zone and it is good for you.
Well, let's try to make this audience a little bit more comfortable about getting outside of their comfort zone. It looks like we have a wide range of experience levels who are joining us here today. So in a couple of sentences, could you first tell us what is a technical paper, just so that we're all on the same page, and then also share with us a few key components?
Okay, so a technical paper is something that really relates to some technical work that you have done. So I am into R&D and research. A university professor is doing research in whatever area that they may be in. So when you're working on a project that is technical in nature, that really constitutes a technical paper. It is not managerial. It is more technical and engineering aspects of any given project or a study that you may be working on.
Do you see, because when I'm looking through the comments right now, Mohammed from Bahrain, Ankesh from Norway, we have Kushan from Sri Lanka, Kuwait, Nigeria, England, Ukraine. I mean, we're spanning the globe right now. Have you noticed a different approach in technical papers, region to region? And if so, not trying to put a star next to one of the regions, but what have you seen work best at SPE events or conferences?
So I think that, the papers that are, or abstracts, shall we say, that are accepted and finally presented at SPE conferences, the key thing is how to write a good abstract. Because a good abstract that flows well will really make it or break it for your ultimate paper to be into the SPE literature. So if I just pinpoint one thing, is going to be the abstract, and the abstract is the most important. And all of the SPE, at least the SPE audience and the way SPE works, and this differs from society to society and from journal to journal. Our structure in the SPE that you first submit an abstract, and then there's a committee that meets and selects the best abstracts, and then you're allowed to write the technical paper, and then you go and present. So now in terms of around the world, I've seen different types of folks writing technical papers. So if I just make some distinction, if you look at the SPE literature, most of the abstracts and paper, at least earlier on, were in the North American domain. But over the years, they have expanded across the globe, from North America to Europe to Asia and Africa. So that's a good thing, because now we're getting more diversity in terms of where these papers are coming from. And we must and should include the diversity in our SPE domain.
Well said. And with that diversity, we're just learning more and more about how the industry can progress and move forward from one another. I do want to talk a little bit more about structure, but I have to first mention on the abstract idea before today's broadcast, SPE Gaia, big Joanna Dunlop, she was on the board with SPE previously, and she saw this was upcoming on LinkedIn, our discussion, and she commented saying, start by writing a good abstract to stand out in the selection process. And it sounds like that's just what you had echoed right there. So Can we go on what happens next? Let's say your paper is selected. Broadly, what are some of the core elements that do make up a good technical paper once you start writing it?
Okay, so let me back up a little bit, and let me go through the process of how an abstract is selected, or how the SPE technical papers are structured. So you have the ATCE 2021 now in Dubai. So let's back up 1 year from today and go back to, let's say, October of 2020. That's when the call for papers, that's when the committee met for the SPE ATCE Dubai, and they send out a call for papers. And once you get the call for papers, then you are supposed to write an abstract and submit that to a certain deadline. Now, this deadline is most likely going to be about 8 months before the actual conference is going to be held. So you submit your abstract, and then it goes through a committee, and that committee then reviews and rates those abstracts and gives it some marks. So let's say if I am a reservoir description, and we get in the SPE TCE, we get, let's say, 1,000 abstracts. And out of that, let's say 200 are in reservoir engineering domain. And those 200 abstracts are now going to be rated. And let's say we have only slots for 50 in the actual conference. So from the 200, we have to tone down to about 50 paper that will be abstract, that will be accepted for presentation and for the technical papers. So how do we do that? So let's say there are 10 people in the committee, and each one will then rate all the 200 abstracts. And then we are going to aggregate and consolidate from the 10 different members. And the committee will then rank them from the highest points to the lowest point and select the top 50, not exactly in that manner. And then those are the people who will be told that their papers, abstracts have been accepted, and they will be given a deadline of about 2-3 months to write the actual paper. So this is, there's a deadline for the actual technical paper to be submitted to the SPE, and all those instructions are given by the SPE. So you will then write the paper during that time frame, and then you will come and present at the annual technical conference or any other conference that SPE has. So the most important thing is, how do you write that abstract? Now, I can talk now a little bit more about the basic manuscript outline.
Yeah, and I think that would be appreciated, because those are the main questions that we're getting right now. But I think that you had to set the stage first, the way that you did, to lay out the timeline. And for anyone who is interested on open call for papers, there is a website that you can go to, spe.org/events/papers, and it will let you know the proposal deadlines, the meetings or events that they pertain to, as well as other guidelines and timelines that you need to know. So for instance, OTC, the Offshore Technology Conference, does have a proposal deadline of tomorrow. So if you're interested in that, get your abstract in as soon as possible. But then there are a few more coming up later in the month, like the International Oil Field Scale Conference and Exhibition and the Norway Subsurface Conference. So that's a resource for you if you kind of want to get an idea of where you might want to be proposing an abstract. So Sunil, from there, go ahead and continue with the next element.
Okay, so let's say you submitted your abstract, and your abstract, you were lucky enough that you got accepted, and that now you're supposed to write a technical paper. Now, SPE will send you all the guidelines in terms of how to write the a technical paper. So what I'm going to share with you is just some basic outline for the technical paper. So what constitutes the material that is going to go into that final technical paper that you're going to write? So there are several things. Let's start with the title. So there's a title for your paper, and that has already been done because your abstract got selected. And then the abstract. The abstract is also now done because you submitted your abstract, based on which now you're being asked to write the technical paper. So the other elements of a technical paper would include the introduction. What is the background about your topic or the paper that you're writing? Theory and definitions, and any materials that you may have used during your experiments or your simulations or your case study. You will define the stuff that you used, any equipment and or processes that you may have utilized. Then you will present all the data and results in that paper. And this will be followed by some discussion or inferences from what you have done, and followed by conclusions, acknowledgements, and references. So these are the basic elements, shall we say, of a good technical paper. Now, let me go through those elements one by one, so that you have an understanding of what those different elements are. Let's start with the title. Now, remember, you've already written the title in abstract, but the characteristic of a good title is that it should be short, informative, and with familiar terms. So try not to use any abbreviations and avoid words like new and improved, because not everything can be new. Unless it's absolutely genuinely new, then you are entitled to use those words. Be direct in terms of focus on what the reader's attention on the paper content will be. Also remember that your title, the words in the title, will become searches in the database. I am hoping here that everybody is familiar with OnePetro, which is a technical paper database that SPE uses. Maybe we can talk about it later. So your words in the title are going to be key. And when somebody is searching in the future, they will go through those words. And if you have the right kind of words, your paper will show up in those searches. And some of the common issues with titles include that they can be too short, or they could be too long. They could be misleading, does not reflect of what you have in your actual paper, and then they may use unfamiliar jargon and abbreviations. So it is not a good idea to use abbreviations in your title unless it's really, really, everybody knows in the industry what that abbreviation is for. So title is important. I always say that your title should be catchy, because that's the first thing the reviewers in that committee that I described are looking for. They're looking for good, catchy titles. Once you have done that, the second part is the abstract. And this goes back to your initial submission of the abstract. So what constitutes a good abstract? An abstract should be very clear, it should be concise, and provide a summary of the paper topic. We have already have the topic in the title. It should be short, generally less than about 400 words, but make sure that you follow whatever the guidelines are for that conference, whether it is SPE or anything else. You must present what's your bright idea, what have you done, and why it is unique. So these are important aspects for an abstract. And remember, your abstract has only one chance of making it with the program committee. It's either a reject or a approval. So make it good, because this will determine whether or not you will write the paper ultimately. The success rate for SPE conferences are very competitive in terms of what they accept. Generally speaking, and this varies from conference to conference, generally speaking, the acceptance rate is about 25%. It can be as low as 10%, or it can be as high as 40%. So you can understand that your abstract has 1 in 4 chances of making it to the conference or getting accepted.
And then, Sunil, sorry to interrupt you, but from here, if we could maybe spend about 2 more minutes on the paper itself, then we do have some audience questions that have come in. Okay. I guess acting as a transition into the actual technical paper component that you were about to discuss, Mohammed Abdullah said that he thinks that writing a technical paper is a story that captures details pertaining to an issue that you face and how you address it. So how would you respond to that? And then also share some of the core elements or best tips that you have for the actual components of the technical paper itself.
That's absolutely correct. I think that every time you write a technical paper, there should be a story. And the best kind of abstracts and best kind of technical papers are those that describe a case study, for example, or your story, some of the lessons that you have learned. And they also sit well with the committee when they're doing their selection. So yes, absolutely, a story is important. And I compare the technical paper sometimes to movies. What are the good elements of a movie? a bland, straight, smooth theme is not going to entertain you much. So similarly, I mean, we are not exactly in the same league as movies, but still, you must have some kind of ups and downs and some kind of nice story that you're weaving and leading up to some conclusions that are special for your work and for your paper.
And one question that's come in, thank you so much for sharing all that. I think it has to do with commercialism. SPE has said that they do their best to make sure that we are excluding direct commercialization within the papers themselves. But this viewer has said that they have seen product titles or product names in titles and some commercial aspects here and there. Can you kind of address that a little bit, how that happens, what your advice is to whether or not you should include a product name in the title?
Yeah, so, commercialization within a technical paper is a no-no. Mm-hmm. So the committee members are advised when they're doing the selection that they should give negative weightage for papers that are outright, selling a product. This is not the forum. The technical platform that the SPE provides is not a forum for selling your product. That is somewhere else. That is in the exhibition. That is in the showroom. And, when you go and meet with those clients. So if we see a product being highlighted and if a company is being highlighted, then we tend to give it lower weight. And normally, there is also a comment section that says, is the paper commercial? And if you tick that, and too many reviewers tick that, the paper is automatically rejected. So my advice would be, try not to include that or come across that you're selling a product. You may have the best product in the world, but this is not the right platform. And yes, sometimes it does pass through because some people are very sophisticated in how they present even their products in the technical paper. But generally speaking, no.
Thank you for sharing that. And then Victor, I see you. Thanks for watching from Indonesia. Alexandra and Cesar Augusto watching from Venezuela. Thank you so much. And Davud from Iran, as well as Vishal from India. And then Hassan was asking whether or not this live will be saved. Yes, you'll be able to watch this live on the link that you're currently watching it on, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube. The same link will have the on-demand version of this broadcast. So Sunil, I think you've shared a lot of really good best practices to get everyone started. And me, I mean, I even have a better idea of what really makes up a technical paper. So the next question is more about mentality. Why should someone write a technical paper? And in many ways, that may even be the first step.
Yeah, I think that why definitely should be the first step. It's really about motivation. Why do you want to write in the first place? So there are a number of reasons. You increase the body of knowledge for the entire industry. So think about a project that you are working on, and your boss tells you, okay, do some legwork and do some literature review and do some background searching. So what do? You go to one Petro or a knowledge database, and you extract, you put in some keywords and you extract all those papers from that database. Now, somebody must have written that paper for you to be able to read it. So they are giving you a service by sharing what they have done in the past. And then it becomes our obligation also to share. So it is, this knowledge sharing is really, in my personal opinion, an obligation for each and every one of us to give back to the industry. And if more of us give back, the more stories we'll have, the more knowledge the whole industry will have, and I think it'll be wonderful. So your work also then becomes part of the ENP literature, so that others can reference, so anybody else doing work in your project can reference what you have done. It gives you professional recognition. And I don't know any company that will give you negative marks for writing a paper. In fact, in Saudi Aramco and many companies, the more you write, the better your PMP or your performance rating is going to be. It also adds prestige to your resume. So if you're job searching, many companies will look at your past technical paper publication record and then base that decision. So it's a plus. It's also a recognition for your company. So if I write a paper for Saudi Aramco, for example, my company also gets recognized that they're publishing in leading conferences and the SPE. And last but not least, it gives you personal satisfaction that you're giving back. So I look at writing a technical paper a win-win-win. Win for you, win for your company, and a win for the industry. So do it.
If everyone watching right now is not inspired at this point, you're going to have to check your pulse a little bit. Peter writing in, I fully agree. This is such an innovative session. Sunil, you've been absolutely fantastic. What you've shared is borderline priceless right now, and just the energy that you have behind it. I can tell that there's a passion from you for this topic. And then Mohammed, Mahmoud almost sets us up perfectly for his question. Are there any courses that you suggest to help us with any of this? And I would say yes, there are. Coming up at ATCE. Sunil, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so those of you who are listening, I'll be giving this course on how to write a technical paper tomorrow. And I think it's around the same time. If you go to the SPE website, the ATCE website rather, and look at September 14th schedule, you will see that slot there. And I highly encourage you to click on that and register yourself, and you will learn a little bit more than what I've talked about today.
And that is a free session that is open to all, whether or not you're registered for ATCE. So please go over to ATCE's website and check it out. We're also sharing a link to that in the description and the comments of this live stream so that you can access that a little bit easier. Sunil, is there anything else that you would like to add? Any stories that you would like to share about the technical paper process?
Yeah, one story that really comes to my mind is the time that I was one of the review members for a conference on CO2 enhanced oil recovery. And this was a conference in Paris some time back. And essentially what happened was, the theme was CO2 enhanced oil recovery. And what happened, we started seeing many non-related, to the theme paper abstracts being submitted. So when we were evaluating, we were saying that, these few papers have no sense. They have nothing to do with CO2 EOR. Why are people submitting? And then later on, when we discussed about it, we realized that people were submitting because of the location of the conference. And I think that's a very bad idea, because you should really focus your abstract on the theme of the conference. Otherwise, there's very little chance of that paper being accepted. So that's one of the lessons that I learned, some time back, and I highly encourage that, focus on the theme.
I appreciate you sharing those. And there are more questions coming in. If we can try and just get to a couple, your quick responses for these, Sunil. Hassan asks whether or not it's better to write in passive or narrative.
I think that SPE generally is passive. So if you're following that style, be consistent throughout the paper. Mm-hmm. But normally we write in passive English.
Okay. And then I'm sure that some of these you'll also be covering tomorrow as well. Yeah. And in more detail too, because everyone tomorrow is much more in depth and it's longer too. So you'll get a lot more information out of that. I guess the last question I'd like to share is from Vishal asking whether or not you have any tips to avoid plagiarism. That can kind of be a tricky topic these days.
Yes. So I think SPE has it passes all the abstracts and the papers through some machine or some software related to plagiarism. And, sometimes we feel that copying and pasting into our paper is the right thing to do. because the other guy said it so eloquently. And that's exactly what I want to say. But that is not a good idea, because you will be caught just as students are caught by university professors. SPE is now filtering all your abstracts and your papers through, and you will get a call from, or not a call, but an email from SPE that, if this is 80% plagiarized or 50% or 20%, and you will have to take appropriate actions to correct it. So my advice would be, try to write in your own words, and I know that you will be able to do it.
Yeah, we want to hear your voice. And as a very last resort, you can always reference, right? If you need to reference someone, just make sure that you follow the referencing guidelines. Audience, you have been amazing. Special thanks to Sunil Kokal. Really appreciated speaking with you today. Thank you so much.
It's been my pleasure. And I hope that everybody listening in will write something.
You and me both. All right, everyone. We hope to see you next time. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.